All right, in today's podcast, I sit with Christophe Choo, top agent in Beverly Hills. We talk about luxury real estate and what makes him successful. For those real estate agents wanting to get into luxury, or if you're a luxury real estate seller or buyer, you're really going to want to listen to this one.
Hey there, Nick. How are you?
Very well. Good morning.
Good morning to you.
Nice to see your smiling face.
Thank you, too. And how are things in beautiful Cabo?
Everything is fantastic. It's busy. How's it in Beverly Hills?
Things are good, but this is probably a high season for you, right?
The start of the high season, yeah, it was back in November, usually.
I think Christmas through after Easter, I would imagine, is your biggest period of time of sales. So,
yeah. So our agents are going crazy, touring and taking listings. And how is it for you?
I'm good. Beverly Hills market's very strong, and we're seeing a return of multiple offers in the lower ends, not even lower end segment, even up to 4 or 5 million. So it's a very healthy market.
Is that the lower end for you? Is 4 or 5?
My average price range can be 5 million one year, could be 9 million, could be 4, depends on the year. But Beverly Hills it hovers between 8 to 9 million as an average for the city. But I sell all around LA. So like we listed a property yesterday for $899.
Oh my gosh. So
but it's not in Beverly Hills. It's about a 45-minute drive east of here.
Got it. And have you been expanding your team? Is it more than just you and an assistant? Are you getting agents?
I've had some agents in the past, and right now they're not officially on the team. They just do deals kind of when they can. So far, I've had some challenges at really building the team itself, unlike you. So,
well, it's tough when you're the star, and your clients are expecting you, and you enjoy doing it, right?
Yes, exactly.
Well, we're recording, Christophe, and
perfect.
And
I'm ready to go.
It's just like that. It's casual, just catching up, and I really wanted you on the podcast because you are a superstar in Beverly Hills.
I've been
following you for a long time. You and I are both connected with Tom Ferry, and we see each other from time to time at the different seminars. And I really wanted to dig deep into your business and start off with where are you from?
Well, I was born and raised here in LA. Mm-hmm. So I've been here my whole life. My mom came from the south of France in the early 60s. And my dad emigrated here from South Korea in the early 60s as well. But I'm a local boy, as they call it.
And
not around.
So you're clearly Asian like myself. So that's from your dad's side.
Yeah, I'm half Korean, half French. Split down.
And do you speak French and Korean?
I speak French fluently. Korean I do not, but French fluently, yes.
And has that been useful in real estate?
We don't have a huge French population here, but we did recently sell a property that was to a buyer from France. I did the whole transaction in French, and it was close to 15 million. So yeah, it's useful. I have to say, I had to study certain specific real estate terms and words in French because I didn't know how to say different specific terms, so I had to, every time we'd have a Zoom call, because the buyers were living abroad, you work with a lot of clients out of area too. I had to okay, this morning we're going to be talking about X, Y, and Z. I had to go to my French dictionary and find the right words so I knew what words to say in French, right?
So Christophe, how many years ago has it been that you got started in real estate?
I started when I was 18, so it's been 33 years.
You started at 18.
Yeah.
And so what got you to get into real estate at such a young age?
That's a good question. So at the time, I was modeling, traveling quite a bit. And my wife now of 30 years, she didn't like me being gone so much. So after I came back from I think a 3-month working trip in Europe, she said to me, why don't you get a more stable job? And I was 18, young and dumb. And I said, well, what'd you have in mind? She says, how about real estate? And this is what I thought as an 18-year-old. I said, well, I can drive a fancy car, I can show pretty houses, I can be my own boss, and I can make a lot of money. I didn't know there was such a thing as escrows and titles and inspections and termites. And so I literally just took my course, passed the test and jumped into real estate. It was just that simple, just like that.
But was it that easy getting started? I mean, what was your
Oh,
first
no.
year of real estate like?
The first year I did one sale. It was a $43,000 co-op, and I made $1,738. I remember it pretty well, but I'd probably spent 5 or 6,000 to kind of get started. And my manager at the time, God bless her, and she's still a good friend today. She came to me and she's British, and she says, "Christophe, you've been here for over a year. You only sold one property. Unless you get some business going in the next 90 days, we're going to have to ask you to leave the office." So I was at the number one company, I think the number two office in the city. And I was just like, I'm not going to have to leave this office. So I went to a seminar, a program where I learned how to prospect expired listings and for sale by owners. And that's what I started doing, because at 18 years old, there was no one my age or friends my age who were buying or selling houses. So I figured, okay, this seller was on the market for 6 months or 9 months. They didn't sell. I can do it for them. And then this seller is a for sale by owner. They're trying to sell. Let me talk to them. And little by little, I started, just spending 3 hours a day prospecting. I started building a client base, and I was starting to sell those homes. And that's how it started. But first year, one deal, 43,000, and then it just started growing and growing. And then I think second year in the business, maybe almost third year, I joined coaching, and it was a lot of money to coach. And I thought, well, I knew in my mind I would make 10-time return on the investment of coaching. So I signed up. And from then on, my business kind of doubled and doubled and doubled, because I was coaching, I was learning, and I was doing what I had to do. As opposed to the first year, I sat and waited for business to come. We have, I don't know if you have it in Cabo, but here at that time, we had what's called floor desk or up desk, where all the incoming calls would come in the office. And if the agents weren't there, if you were at the desk for those 3 hours, you'd get those incoming leads. That never led to anything. And I didn't have any listings really, so I would hold open houses for other agents twice a week, Saturdays and Sundays, but that didn't lead to anything either. And I remember a couple months into the deal, into real estate, I think it was my first offer. I met a buyer at an open house, and I think it was a $1.8 million house, which was be like 8 million today. And met the buyer, seemed very legitimate. He wanted to make an offer. We wrote an offer. We drove to the seller's house in Beverly Hills, presented the offer with my training director, and we had the check and everything. And turned out the guy was a fraud. And when I called, in those days, you could call the bank. I called the bank to verify the check, and they said something like it was not a stolen check, but it was a fraudulent. It was some kind of fraud. So I was very disappointed when my first deal at 1.6 or 1.8 million was a fraudulent deal, and I didn't make any commission.
All of us real estate professionals that have been in the business long enough have those kind of stories. But especially in the beginning, how did you persevere? Because I imagine that you thought about quitting several times early on.
Actually, I never thought about quitting.
Really?
No, that was never, I always knew I'd be successful. It was, like most things, it takes longer than you think, right? And longer than you expect. But no, quitting was never something that was in my mind.
Wow, that's fantastic. And
so today, once in a while, I think to myself, do I really want to be in real estate? Because it's as you know, it's really evolved quite a bit, and it's a very challenging industry at many times. But yeah, quitting certainly when I was younger, newer, not at all. Never really crossed my mind.
And so you were prospecting 3 hours a day, doing expireds, really grinding it out. I mean, yes. Are you doing those kind of things like today in 2024?
No. But I did that for about 15, 16 years.
And why don't you do it now? Is it you have a lot of repeat business?
Yeah, last year about 50% of our business was past clients in Sphere. The other 50% was agent referrals, and then other things in the mix. But I mean, if I'm trying to get back to a schedule of making phone calls every day, like not just to past clients in Sphere, but to expired listings and all that, because I do have a lot of value to offer those particular sellers. It's just, when you're prospecting expireds, you got to be, ready to hit the phones before 8 o'clock in the morning, meaning having all your data of the properties, all of the phone numbers. And it was, it was literally like, 8 to 8:50, nonstop calling, double headsets, 2 phones dialing, the old school. and then 10-minute break. So it's a lot of work. I was very good at it, and role playing your scripts and practicing your objection handler, all that stuff. So I did that for a very long time. So
And how important was that to mold you into the agent you are today?
oh, hugely important. If I had not done all that training and script learning and language and NLP and all that way back then, I wouldn't be as successful as I am today. Even today, those scripts are still completely embedded in my mind. I could read them off like that,
Right.
Yeah.
And so you've developed quite a niche. When I hear Beverly Hills, I hear the luxury, the rich and famous. Is it really like that selling real estate in Beverly Hills?
There are times it can be like that. Right now we have listings that are like in the $3 to $4 to $5 million range. Sometimes you have stuff that's 50 million or more, 60 million. So yeah, that's one of the things I really liked about going into real estate is I love beautiful homes and architecture. I love art. I love antiques. I love landscape design. I love beautiful things. And, the more expensive the house, typically, not always, but the more beauty is there. And so I really enjoy, like when I have a big listing and it's a great property, you meet very interesting people at a high-end property. It's really a lot of fun. It's more fun than, let's say, a $900,000 starter house.
Right. And in your career, what was the most expensive listing that you had?
68 million.
And that's just a single house?
Yep.
And how long ago?
It had a little mini train on it.
Oh, I've seen that video. That you did.
Yes. And I'll tell you, interestingly enough, my rise into luxury market in Beverly Hills took some time. My office previous to Beverly Hills, I've been here now probably 24 years in this office. But before that, I was in an area called Hancock Park, which is about 5 miles east of Beverly Hills. And at that time, when I moved to Beverly Hills, my average sales price was about $280,000.
Oh my God.
Yeah. But I was doing a fair number of deals, like 60, 65 transactions a year. I was one of the top two or three agents in that office. But I knew in my heart and soul I had to be in Beverly Hills. Hancock Park was a beautiful area, but I felt it was capped. At that time, maybe the highest price was $5 million, whereas in Beverly Hills, maybe it was $20 million, right? And so I remember thinking to myself, I'm the big fish in the little sea. I'm the big fish in the little sea. I want to be the little fish in the big sea. So I figured if I move myself to Beverly Hills, I'll have a lot more opportunities. And that's just where instinctively I felt at home. I felt like this is where I feel comfortable. And now, we live over here, we eat here, we shop here, everything is here. And it's really like a little magical fairy tale land, I have to say. If you've been to Palm Beach, it's kind of like Palm Beach on the West Coast. So it is a very special place. And every day I'm so grateful for being here and being part of this world, and walk out my door and go to the best restaurants in the city, and walk 2 blocks away. You got Rodeo Drive, and we got beautiful homes. And so it's really a very special place. And I feel very honored and blessed to be able to be part of it.
I think the fact that you have a personal liking to fine things, art, fashion, design, it's easy to get into that luxury realm of real estate. But how did you develop the liking for those things? Was it in your upbringing? Was it school? Because for me, I was baseball and tennis.
Yeah, see, I was completely not into sports at all.
Okay.
I think what happened with that, I think either you're born with that natural instinct or you're not for those kinds of things, or you for sports. I wasn't born with that natural instinct. So, but being half French and half Korean, fortunately, even though my parents were not wealthy, every summer I would spend pretty much every summer in France. So back in those days, school would run up until June 15th, and then June 15th through September 15th was summer vacation, right? So most kids at school, they would go to summer camp, or they'd play basketball in the street with their friends, or go to baseballs, whatever they did. Unfortunately, no, I shouldn't say unfortunately. For me, fortunately, I get on a plane and go to France for 3 months every summer. And the first time I went, I was 6 years old by myself. I went on the plane on Air France direct to Paris, didn't speak any French. And my relatives picked me up, and I spent 3 months in France with my aunts and uncles and cousins and my grandfather, and came back speaking French. But, at 6 years old, you see the chateaus in the Loire. You see the beautiful architecture of Paris. You go see all the beautiful boutiques like Chanel and Dior and all those things. It's exposure. And I was fortunately exposed to things like that at a very young age. And once I saw those things, which you don't see here in LA, especially I wasn't living in Beverly Hills at that time. It was just something that I was naturally drawn to immediately. So I just pursued it.
Is it intimidating selling such expensive real estate? Maybe not now, but when you first got into it, because you're dealing with the wealthiest people in the world, very important, sometimes famous people. I mean, for me, I would be intimidated. Were you?
I think a lot of people are. For me, I've never been intimidated by a wealthy client. I circle socially in those spheres for a long time. So I know them personally in most cases. So it's a very natural, comfortable thing. We travel only to the best hotels and parties around the world. So we, again, are around those people. And I remember when I got my first $5 million listing, or almost $6 million listing, not at all intimidating, nothing. And then when I got my first $30 million listing almost 20 years ago, it was a friend of ours, and we'd been to the house many times. And my only thought was, I remember when I got the call that morning, it was a Sunday morning, he called and says, "We want you to come tomorrow. We're thinking about selling the house." And I knew it was somewhere in the $30 million range, and my highest sale was like 5.5. But the thing was, do you have caravan in Cabo? Like, do you have like on a Tuesday or Wednesday where you go tour the new listings?
Yeah, it's not weekly, but it is organized with our local agent community.
Okay. So we do it here weekly, and I've been doing it every year for 30 years, where I get at my car for 3 hours and I tour the houses. So I remember I would go touring every Tuesday with one of my friends in the office. She had been in the business maybe 35, 40 years, more mature lady. And we'd be in the car and I'd go see these $5, $10 million houses, and some of them were invitation only, at that level. And so I go see them, and she says, "I don't know why you're wasting your time looking at all these $5, $10 million houses. You don't have buyers for those." I said, "I may not today, but if I do tomorrow, I know exactly what to show them." Right. So when this friend of ours called about his house, which still today is one of the prettiest houses in LA, today it's probably worth about 65, 70 million. So I went there. I had seen and it's a very specific area of LA called Beverly Hills. There's maybe only a couple hundred homes there, and the price range there now starts at around 10, 12 million if you're lucky to find a fixer. Okay. Wow. Yeah. So I had those 3-ring binders where every house I went to see, I kept the brochure, and I had them, like, one was Bel Air, one was Beverly Hills, one was Beverly Hills. And so I would go see them in person. I would have the brochure. So and I studied the comps every day. So I was really prepared. So when I went to meet him, and he was a big businessman, he had sold his company, back in the early 90s, maybe even late 80s, like $450 million, right? Mm-hmm. So, but when I went to get the listing, I know I always think about who the clients are. So I was very to the point, and I just basically asked them 3 or 4 questions. And I said, "Steve, do you absolutely have to sell your home?" Scripts, right? He says, "Well, yes, we are. We're going to be moving to South Korea. We want the kids to go, actually China. We want the kids to go to school in China, blah, blah, blah." Wonderful. I said, "Are you willing to price your home to sell?" He says, "What price do you want listed for?" I said, "We should list it for 26.5. He said, "What do you think it's worth?" I said, 22, 23 million. He says, "Okay." He says, "No, I want to list it for 30 million. I said, in that case, I said, "I'm going to need a 12-month listing agreement to sell the house." Because when he said to me, I said, "Well, if I sell it for you in the next 90 days, is that okay?" He says, "No, we're not leaving." It was October. "We're not leaving the country till July. We want the kids to finish school, and then we're moving out of the country." I said, "Then I need a 1-year contract," because the price was high, all that. And I said, "Do you want me to handle the sale for you?" He says, "Yes, I do." He says, "What's your commission?" Now, this is something I'd worked through in my mind for several hours the day before. I spent 8 hours preparing the presentation, because I figured, big businessman, I had this beautiful presentation, which I never even showed him, because I just asked those questions and he signed the listing. So he looks at me and he says, "I'm only paying you $1 million to sell this house." So, okay. So in those days, it was tight contracts, the carbon contracts. Uh-huh. There was no DocuSign. So I scratched out the 6%, and nobody in that price range would ever ask for 6%. They would typically ask 5, maybe 4, right? But I asked for 6. So I scratched it out. I wrote in what he said. He said, I wrote in $1 million. We ended up selling it 14, November, December. Yeah. So we sold it 14 months later at 23.5 million, which is exactly what I said. Once we reduced it to 26.5, and he paid us $1 million.
Wow.
But wow. I was not afraid. I was very sure of I've always been sure of myself. So I was not afraid. And I came in very confident. in myself and my ability to sell the house. And the rest is history. Oh, and the best part about that house is, I think it was just before they were leaving, he called me up and he says, well, we're going to be leaving the country. My wife's brother was going to be living in the house while it was for sale, because it was a 15,000 square foot house on an acre. They had full-time gardeners and people taking care of the house, but they had very expensive art and antique collection, worth more than the house actually. And he says, we're wondering if you and your wife would mind living in the house while it's for sale. And I said, well, I don't know about that, Steve. I said, we've got our own house, we got our dogs, our cats, and I called my wife. I said, what do you think? She said, oh, yes. And then I thought about that, a house like that, you got to get there probably an hour ahead of time to turn all the lights on, put the candles on, ready to prep it, right? So I thought to myself, my wife doesn't work. So if I have the listing, and in the high-end market, it's quite often very last minute. These super wealthy people just get a whim. And they want to buy today and they just want to see it in an hour. So I just thought, okay, well, I can call my wife. The house will always be clean and ready, and I could just have her put the lights on and show it. So we ended up living there for 7 months. Oh, and the other thing is when I listed the house is beautifully furnished, but there were 2 rooms that were not, in my opinion, properly furnished. They had 3 kids and it was their home, right? So the 2 rooms were like not the show rooms like the other house, but it was just like their rooms. I said, let's stage these rooms. She's like, nope, this is my house. I'm not going to stage it. So I said to the owner, I said, we'll move in under several conditions. Number 1, we remove any furniture we don't think is appropriate. We're going to bring our antiques and art and stage certain things. And he said, fine. I said, we need a flowered orchid budget to have flowers and fresh orchids and candles in the house all the time. He says, done. And so what ended up happening is that when I first listed in October, this couple came, a buyer and his wife, and they wanted to buy the house. But it was, first of all, it was 30 million, and she didn't like the 2 rooms that I wanted to stage. So come full circle, I think in August or September, later on, once we had moved in, I called up the broker representing the buyer. I said, you know what? Your clients buy anything yet? No, they haven't bought. I said, we reduced the price on the house. We also changed the rooms that she wasn't so thrilled with. They came back and they bought the house.
Wow.
Now, the funny thing is, at that time, we were listed at 26.5, and I told the agent, I said, whatever you do, don't come in less than 20 million. Yeah. If you're going to start low, start at 20. Well, they came in at 17.5, right? Like $10 million gap. He was a private investment banker, the buyer, and I called my seller, and he was like, we're not going to respond to this. The wife was insulted. How dare they? That typical thing. I said, Steve, let me do my job. If I need to go back 10, 20, 30 times back and forth to make the deal, and we make the deal that you're comfortable with, I said, okay. He said, yes, he's a businessman. So we went back and forth probably maybe 14, 15 times, and we made the deal. So that's the story of being confident and getting the listing and selling it.
Yeah, and that was over 20 years ago?
It was 2006 or 7, so almost 20 years.
Wow. And what did you learn on that listing that you now implement in your business today?
What did I learn from that listing?
Yeah.
One thing I learned from that listing is that in the high-end luxury market, most people that are wealthy in Beverly Hills already have a beautiful home, okay? And there's usually not a lot of, well, I need to sell my 15,000 square foot house to buy a 30,000 square foot house. Unless there's, it kind of becomes more of a vanity purchase, right? Like all of a sudden they're always doing very well, but then they sell a company and then they do really even better. And then they want to, kind of show off to everyone that they've achieved more, right? It's that kind of, it's an egotistical purchase, I think, in often cases. So I think that what I learned from the party is that we had quite a few parties at the house to sell the house. We did an event with Robb Report magazine, Vineyards, the top jewelers in Beverly Hills, those kinds of things. And so when we had the Rolls-Royce Robb Report party, basically the deal was Rolls-Royce and Robb Report would invite their client base, and I would invite my client base. And so Rolls-Royce was launching their new Phantom car and their new drop head coupe convertible. It was the brand new launch. So Rolls-Royce sent out the president of Rolls-Royce from London. The designer who designed those 2 cars came out. They invited all their clients. So I remember that night, and we had security guard, everything. There were probably 65, 75 Rolls Royces parked up and down in front of the house.
Oh, wow.
But these were all the clients that owned Rolls Royces. They were customers of Rolls Royce. So I
Yeah.
almost sold the house that night to a guy. He says, I've driven by this house before, but there are gates. You couldn't really see much of the house. You could see a little top of it. And he says, I just love this house. And he had a beautiful house in Beverly Hills, but so we tried to make a deal. He didn't want to pay the price. So we didn't make the deal, but it was just, he wasn't looking to buy a house. And several of the offers, they were not looking to buy a house. They just loved this particular house. And they thought, well, let's buy this. So I learned that in the high-end wealthy world, if you have a really great product and your sellers are willing to let you do an event, do a really, really good event and try to invite the who's who of the wealthy people in town. Because if it's a really special, unique, beautiful property, they will come and they might buy it, or they might know someone who might buy it. So that's one of the things I learned from that experience.
Just the exposure for you, the people that are on the Rolodex of Rolls Royce
Yep.
and potential future clients for you and your business.
Yep. And a lot of them did become future clients and friends.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's
really nice.
You mentioned like these tens of $1 million listings, 20,
Yes.
30, $60 million listings. How do you price those listings? I mean, it's not like you go and do a standard CMA.
That's right. Because you could have an $80 million house next to a $10 million house.
Right.
We're not like building a community development where every house is kind of cookie cutter. I mean, there are some areas that are similar. I mean, but that's very, very rare and far and few between. So yeah, it's very tough. And one of the biggest things in the high end of luxury real estate, it's the same thing in Cabo. You and I have talked about friends of ours that own some substantial properties in Cabo. And, you're talking about for Cabo, a $20, $30 million house, right? Where I'm sure there are other nice houses for a couple million. So it's very hard to price. That's part of why I go see every house, and then you see what it sells for, and then you kind of get a range, But oftentimes in the high-end market, you might think it's worth 40 million, and they want to start at 72 million, and you tell them, well, that's for the wrong price. You should really be at 46 or 45. But sellers at that level really think they can negotiate or want to negotiate, and it's not unheard of or not at all uncommon in the high end that you'll see 30%, 40% differential from the list price to the selling price.
Right.
That's very, very common in our marketplace. People want to ask because they say, well, my house is special, my house is unique, and it is, they are that price range, they're very unique. And so sellers tend to want to price it always on the high side. And hopefully you have enough of a listing time and they like you enough to keep the listing and renew it. And you might sell it the first year, you might sell it the second year, it depends. So, but yeah, it's extremely challenging to price.
What are you seeing in 2024? How's the real estate market now in Beverly Hills?
It's strong. Last year, our high-end market over in LA over 5 million. Basically, luxury in the west side of LA, not just Beverly Hills, is over 5 million. But when we ended the year last year compared to the year before, we were down in the number of sales between, I think it was 30 some percent in the $5 to $10 million range, 36% in the $10 to $20 million range, 41% in the $20 to $30 million range, and down almost 50% in the $40 million plus range in terms of number of sales. Prices have held strong. I mean, last year we had a couple sales for 200 million, 180 million, big numbers. But the number of deals slowed down, and part of that didn't affect Beverly Hills as much. But what happened is the city started what they call a mansion tax back in April of 2023. And basically, the city decided, aside from your transfer taxes, your city taxes, you got to pay this ULA mansion tax to help the homeless situation in Los Angeles. So 10 million, if it's 10, hold on, over 5 million, it's 4% flat tax for mansion tax. Over 10 million, it's 5.5%.
Whoa.
So a $20 million house, you're talking about $1.1 million extra tax you got to pay to sell that house. So that really put a crimp in a lot of sellers not wanting to sell and pay that tax. I remember it went in effect April 1st and March. I had a couple of listings in the $6 to $15 million range. And I told the sellers, well, if we don't sell it by April 1st, we're just going to take it off, we're going to rent it, whatever. I said, I don't know what the value is of that. I said, you've already bought another house out of state. You're buying a condo in Hawaii. I said, if you whether you do it now or you do it later, the mansion tax is still going to be there. So why wait? Fortunately, I got those both sold just before the mansion tax. But then in the month of April, once the tax went into effect, there was one sale over $5 million in it, one. Because, all of a sudden this new tax and the sellers are like, I'm not paying it, so that really, I think, affected our market substantially.
But as time goes on, I imagine sellers concede to the fact it's a tax that's not going anywhere, and
Right.
it's just the cost of doing business. So that's a seller-borne expense. That's not something the buyer pays.
Correct. Although some sellers want the buyer to pay for it, but right now the sellers have to pay for it, but they might want the buyer to credit them in escrow. But so far, the buyers don't want to pay it.
Okay.
And buyers are thinking, okay, I'll buy this $15 million house, but when I sell it in 4 years, I'm gonna have to pay the mansion tax. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
they do bring it up and they do think about it for sure.
So has 2024 started off on a better note than what you were seeing in
It is a better note. I know we just got just yesterday's numbers. Let me take a quick look. Let's take a look here. We're about the same as last year in terms of the number. Oh, that's no wrong number. Oh, I don't have it here in front of me. So yeah, we're about the same as last year, although we are a little bit better than last year. So things have
Okay.
Yeah.
And for you, is your preference to work with sellers or buyers, or is it the same?
Mostly sellers. I mean, sellers has always been my main forte. We're probably usually 75% sellers. Although I do work with a lot of buyers. They're typically people I know personally or have been referred to me. And the buyers I work with typically are very high-end buyers. I mean, I do everything, but the buyers that I work with are often high-end buyers that are international buyers or out-of-state buyers that are buying a vacation home here, like your clientele, where they live in Chicago or New York and they have a Cabo house and they have maybe a Honolulu house or whatever. So I do both, but listings are my primary focus.
Okay. And are you, has it always been that way, or did you start off working with buyers early?
No, it's always been, I mean, I was taught early on that you have to, be a listing agent. Listing agents is the way to go. But when I was starting out, I did a lot of first-time buyers when I was brand new. And because I would have a lot of listings. I would have maybe 20 listings at a time sometimes. And I'd have full page ads in the paper where I get lots of calls, and that house didn't work for them. So I then work with them as buyers. So yeah, I did a lot more buyers in the beginning than I do now. But listings are always the name of the game as far as I'm concerned.
Christophe, what's your superpower?
Ooh, that's a good question. Having a lot of knowledge and is it one thing?
No, I mean, you could give me a couple.
What's my superpower? That's a good. I have a really honed eye and for beauty. I'm very instinctive. I have a good heart and I really care for my clients. I say those are the three things that are the most important thing. I always want to do the right thing for the client. That's number one. And over the years, I've advised clients not to buy houses or not to do things because I felt that was right for them. They choose to do it or not. But I think it's important as an agent, it's our fiduciary, first of all, to really guide them to help them make the right decision for them.
Yeah, no, I agree with you 100%. And most successful agents say that
Really?
their number one thing is to look out for their client's best interests. You're extremely detailed, and I think the clientele that you work with value that a lot.
The only thing I wish is the clients would always follow my advice. The clients that follow my advice get the best results.
Right.
The ones that headbutt me and they think they know better, it's always a challenge. You know what I mean? It really, really is. But for God, almost 31 years now since I first started coaching, my first coach said, you have to create a visualization and written down, who is your ideal client? So it's so ingrained in my mind. I want clients who love me, trust me, respect me, will follow my advice, will do what I say, are rich and fun, and I can be friends with. That's my client. And so when I meet someone new, that's kind of like an automatic filter that's kind of there invisibly. So as I'm talking to them and getting to know them, are they all those things? If they're combative or they're not, if it's not someone I can be friends with or work with, I'm like, you know what? I just don't think I'm the right agent for you. Because who wants to get, and I've done that. I took a listing a few years back that was, I forgot how much we took. I think we took at 58 million. and they were very challenging sellers. And within 2 days of the listing, I thought I made a mistake. I should not have taken this listing. But I thought to myself, no, I've got a year contract. They'll see how good I am. They're gonna go with it, and they're gonna get this house sold. Well, it didn't work out that way. Had the listing for a year. I did not sell it. We spent over $100,000 marketing that property, and they ended up listing it with someone else afterwards, and they sold it for 24 million, and I had it listed at 58 initially. We did drop the price, but I just remember 2 weeks into it, I thought I should cancel. I should have followed my instinct then and canceled the listing, because they drove me nuts for a year. It was really just the negative energy from them was so bad. It really affected me and my other deals. So,
that's it.
People don't work with people that are not good to work with.
Are you a believer of energy?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, 1,000%. I can't show you my office, but I believe in feng shui, good energy, all of that stuff. And I'm really, you attract what you seek out. And oh yeah, when you come to Beverly Hills to visit me, you'll see my office. You'll see what I mean by energy. My office is filled with crystals and plants and feng shui things, and I mean everything you can imagine.
My wife and daughter are the same exact way. I'm a big believer in energy, and if you just get a sense when you meet people if it's the right energy or not. And
right.
I think when you get more and more experience, that's where you end up developing one of the superpowers, is to identify that and to make smart, educated decisions based on, it's really intangible. It's something you feel. You can't really like quantify. You can't put it in writing. It's just like, it's a feel.
It's a feeling, absolutely. And it's that gut instinct, that gut instinct.
Well, Christophe, I appreciate you joining me and spending some time talking about your business. I look forward to seeing you soon. And if it's in Cabo or if it's in Beverly Hills.
Yeah, I haven't been to Cabo in a while, so we got to come. And before we end this, I want to know, what's your superpower?
Ooh, my superpower, I would say, is I think big. And so I'm a visionary, and it's both a power and it can also be a disability, because when you think big and you want to do big, you end up making mistakes along the way. But that's life, making mistakes and learning from them. So
we all make mistakes. And think about it, you're the number one broker on the Cabo Peninsula, if I'm not mistaken, right?
That's right.
You have how many offices now? 8 or 10?
10. Yeah.
10. And you keep expanding. So that's something I have to learn from you, because I have not done that. I don't want 8 or 10 offices by far. I'd like a nice team of, 4 to 5 really productive agents that I can help build their business. They can help build my business. But I don't need 10 offices.
That's how I started. I was like, if I could just have 2 or 3, agents that can do half as well as I do,
right,
and it ends up becoming 100 agents later. It's like, what happened?
Well, congratulations to your success. And I so appreciate you having me on your podcast. It's very thoughtful of you. And I'll have you on mine shortly as well, because I want to ask you questions. So
I look forward to it, Christophe. Take care, and we'll see you soon.
Yes, I'll see you at the summit this year, hopefully.
Yeah, back in August, right?
Yes.
Up in August. All right, Take care.
Great.
Until the next one. Bye.
Well, that was good.
That was excellent. I learned some new things about you. That's always good. I pick up a lot of your stuff from all your social media, right? So I feel like I knew a lot about you, but I still learn stuff,
Yeah. And our next, whatever elite or summit, whatever we go to, we'll have to have lunch or dinner or a drink together and really get to know each other.
I'm trying to get Tom down to Cabo in June.
Oh, nice.
Last
Before
year,
the heat wave.
to come down and speak to my agents. And so if you're available to come down, say hi, enjoy the Cabo beaches before it gets too hot.
Well, let me know. I'll see if I can convince Tom to swing by in his jet to pick me up on the way down. But that'd be fun, because I love Cabo. I love jet skiing in the Bay of Cabo. I love that. It's so much fun.
Yeah, and your friends and clients you were telling me about Cabo del Sol.
Yeah.
Wow, that project has blown up.
She told me, I think they sold like every condo pre-sale already, I believe, right?
It's so she's the owner of all that land?
Well, she and her ex-husband who passed away, Robert.
Right.
Yeah. But Kelly, I think she and her husband are the two principal owners. Kelly and Robert Day.
Day, that's right. I know the name. Because before they started the project, I was contacted by their attorneys, I think.
Yeah,
and,
I think you told me, yes. Yeah,
to evaluate the property value-wise, because someone had passed away. And so I thought they were getting ready to sell it, but I guess not. Good thing they didn't. They sold probably over $1 billion of real estate in the last couple of years.
I think she co-ventured with Four Seasons, I think it is. And I didn't ask her the details of what people know when you're in their business.
Yeah.
So, but we just had dinners together.
That's amazing. I mean, well, you're so likable. And so that's a good thing for us. If we're social people, we do very well in real estate. And if you're intelligent and you work hard and honest, and so congratulations.
Well, thanks again. Let's talk soon, and let me know if Tom's coming, because that would be really fun to come to Cabo for a few days. I'd love that.
Sounds good, Christophe. Take care.
Thanks, Nick. Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Nick Fong Podcast. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast and the YouTube channel at youtube.com/Ronival Real Estate, and follow Nick on Instagram at NickFong_Ronival. Ready to find your Baja dream home? Check out the latest property listings at Ronival.com or findmexicohouses.com. Hasta luego.